Hello everyone and welcome back to Soren Review. And today we're going to be doing a review for the second Richmond race. This race was interesting in that it was a strategy-based race. Five cautions like the spring race. It was overall a very Richmond-esque race. With that said, I do think that this Richmond race was more entertaining than previous races, and we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the finish, and then I also want to bring up whether Richmond deserves two dates because I think that's an interesting point to talk about. Whether Richmond, you know, should still have two dates, or should we have just one in the spring or one in the fall? Should it still be in the playoffs? Talk all about that. First off, though, Kevin Harvick, 60 career wins. He ties Kyle Busch for ninth on the all times win list. I truly didn't think Harvick would win this season, and here he is with the being the first driver to win two wins in a row. He gets one in Richmond, barely beats out Christopher Bell, as Bell was close 4 seconds in like the last 20 laps. Needed like one or two more laps to catch him. Um, let's bring up the results now. Kevin Harvick gets the win over Christopher Bell. Um, like I said, Bell was gaining. He actually had spun on the end on after one of the restarts in the final stage. Um, he spun on the end of one of the final stages. A lot of pitch strategy, a lot of guys a lap down. Only 11 cars finish on the lead lap. And then 12th through 16th, one lap down. Everyone else, two or more laps down. So kind of similar to the truck race yesterday. Um, it had some pitch strategy. I would say not as much as the first Richmond race, in that the amount of cars on different strategies was different. Um, kind of everyone was on the same strategy. There were a few cars that pitted early and gained positions, or maybe pitted a little later and use that to their advantage. Like for example, Austin Dillon and Alex Bowman were going to finish probably around the 23rd or 24th place range, and then they um, both pitted way earlier than everyone else. Bowman finishes 20th. Austin Dillon finishes 16th. So again, some guys kind of playing some pitch strategy, but I would say nothing too crazy. Um, Compared to the first Richmond race. With that said, though, I wouldn't say that this race wasn't as exciting. There was multiple grooves. The top lane, right against the wall. We hadn't seen that lane be used since I would say about 2017, and you could actually run against that top lane, which was really interesting. It was either that or the super low bottom. Um, and it was just really interesting, the competitiveness of this race. There were dominant cars. Joey Logano, for example, at 222 of the 400 laps. So he was definitely one of the more dominant cars. Ross Chastain led 80 laps. Kevin Harvick led 55 laps. But it didn't seem like we had kind of had in waves. One car would dominate and the other car would dominate. A lot of passing throughout the field, and so I think that's really what made this race exciting. We go through the results. Chris Buescher, you'll notice in third, he was very close to passing Kevin Harvick, arguably one of the best cars. Ran lower, about in the lower top 10 for most of the day. Got up to around sixth place position about halfway through the race, and then he worked his way up to about third, and then through pit stops got his way to second. Lapped cars, though, he just could not get lucky with the lapped cars, and eventually lost the car. Finished third. Just a tough break for Busher. I mentioned Bow already, but Bow had closed in like 4 seconds. He had a top 10 car all day. Needed about a few more laps to pass Harvick. Kind of similar to the spring race, where Harvick needed a few more laps to pass Denny Hamlin. Speaking about Denny Hamlin, he finishes fourth. Probably would have finished in the top three, but he had a bit of a slow pit stop during green flag pit stops. He ends up finishing fourth. Chase Elliott rebounds from last week to get fifth place finish. Joey Logano, the most dominant uh, car of the day, he just couldn't keep up with the leaders, and track conditions really changed. It became really cloudy and a bit cooler on the temperature in the final stage, and Joey Logano just couldn't keep up with the track conditions. Martin Truex Jr., we know he had to keep up with Ryan Blaney. He actually loses 7 points to Blaney. The points battle is now 26. Blaney, you see there in 10th as well. Martin Truex Jr. struggled for a good portion of the day, was at one point a lap down. He comes back to finish seventh. Eric Almirola, eighth, had an impressive run, fast car. Kyle Busch, we'll talk about this in a moment. He spun kind of shortly after stage three, after him and Ross Chastain, yes, Ross Chastain, made contact. He recovers for a nice 10th place finish. The only other notables, Bubba Wallace finishes 13th. Kind of continues that momentum that we've seen from the past few races. Kyle Larson, the pole sitter, finishes 14th. I want to point out Brad Keselowski, who was top 10 for most of the day, but similar to Logano, but in a more drastic measure, couldn't keep up with the track. The Trackhouse cars finished 18th and 19th. Just not a good day for Trackhouse. They really, really struggled today. Arguably one of the worst runs. Cole Custer in 26 was top 10 for the first half of the race, but they had a mechanical problem, power steering, put him back, never could recover. Chase Briscoe in 23rd, the rocker box, like in Indy for Buescher and Logano, rocker box caught fire for Briscoe. He was top 10, if I recall, for a part of this race. He finishes 23rd, and you'll notice my tough breaks. Tyler Reddick finishes in 31st. He actually spun on lap three, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know what happened to the car. I don't know if they had a mechanical problem, but they were slow. They finished behind both the Spire Motorsports cars. Um, yeah, Reddick, I don't know what happened to Tyler Reddick. Just not a good day at all. And our two DNFs, Eric Jones, who was involved in the Kyle Busch Chastain incident, and Ty Gibbs with a mechanical issue. We'll briefly recap the day. There wasn't much that I haven't already mentioned. Lap 3, Reddick spun out. The rest of stage 1 went green. If I'm not mistaken, it was won by Ross Chastain, who dominated the first stage, and then he just fell through the field for the rest of the race. Um, Stage 2, if I'm not mistaken, went all the way green, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to recall, but if I'm not mistaken, it went all the way green, 160 laps. We had some pit strategy and stuff like that. Stage 2 caution, and then we restarted, and kind of we restarted, we ran like one or two laps, and then the caution came out because Ross Chastain, who was running next to Kyle Busch, he was running like the middle line, it looked like, trying to give room to Ty Dillon, who was not underneath Chastain, but would have been kind of like on corner exit and in the middle of the corner. But Kyle Busch, who was above Ross Chastain, obviously thought Chastain would go to the bottom, and Chastain spun Kyle Busch. Eric Jones also got damage in that it broke a part of the suspension, and it ultimately ended Jones's day. I haven't actually seen a replay of what Eric Jones actually hit or who he hit. Um, but tough break for Eric Jones, he was caught up in an incident that wasn't even his fault. But Kyle Busch said in an interview that kind of throwing some shade at Ross Chastain, saying oh, we were his victim. Kind of just a blatant mistake by Ross Chastain, obviously not intentional. But just again, Ross Chastain being Ross Chastain. The only other caution after that was shortly after Christopher Bell, who I mentioned finished second. Spun out, got loose on the apron, and just spun out. But again, hardly any cars on the lead lap. Most of the day was only about 15 or so cars on the lead lap, eventually 11 due to the last stage mainly going green for a good 100 or so laps. Other than that, though, the race was okay. I just want to pose the question, as you saw in the title, do we need two Richmond dates? Uh, because I think that fans are not huge fans of these strategy races, especially when they're on the short tracks. When they go to a short track, they want to see Bristol racing, they want to see Martinsville racing, And so it poses a question, do we need two Richmond dates where we don't see that type of action? Instead, it's a more strategy based oval. And my response to that is, if we're going to have two Richmond dates, do or let me pose it a different way, I guess. If we're going to get rid of a Richmond date, is NASCAR going to replace it with a short track? Because if NASCAR gets rid of a Richmond date, is that date going to be replaced for a 1.5 mile track, another Charlotte race perhaps, or Kentucky or Chicagoland? Or is it even going to get replaced for a street course or another road course, right? If we are going to get rid of a Richmond date, I would hope that we get another short track, North Wilkesboro, Nashville Fairgrounds, IRP. I think the Cup Series would be amazing at IRP, but it's my opinion. We already only have 5 paved short track races: the Bristol race, the Bristol Night Race, and the 2 Martinsville and 2 Richmond dates. That's all we have. That's for tracks that are smaller than a mile. I think NASCAR fans are going to regret complaining about these Richmond dates, getting rid of the Richmond dates, because what's going to happen is NASCAR's going to get rid of a Richmond date, probably the fall one, and they're going to replace it with a street course, and then people are going to be upset saying they want Richmond back. So I just hope NASCAR fans realize what they're doing, what they're complaining about, and I hope that if NASCAR does replace the Richmond date, hopefully it's another short track. I think we should keep both Richmond dates, run a night race in April, and run a day race in August or September. That's my opinion, though. And that's going to do it for this video. Remember, you can use code Soren72 at Circle B Diecast at checkout to get $5 off shipping on all orders $30 or more. That's code Soren72. Also, follow me on Twitter if you want, at Review Soren. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and goodbye.